When I was about 5 years old, I popped Sonic Unleashed into my Wii, ready for another wonderful Sonic adventure. In the past I had played games like Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, kinda seeing Sonic as more of this cute little hedgehog. Then, the opening cutscene began, and my eyes were glued to that screen, with my perspective on Sonic as a character changing drastically. Unleashed's opening cutscene is still a cinematic marvel in my eyes, perfectly showcasing Sonic's speed and agility. How he's always able to just barely escape past Eggman's palms, and it showed off his cocky attitude. Although Adventure 2 also did a great job at showcasing Sonic's radicalness, it was Unleashed that made me go, okay, this is the coolest character ever made in the universe. But then that sequence where Sonic turns into a werehog occurred, and I screamed because that stuff scared the hell out of me as a kid. But after watching that cutscene, I wanted nothing more than for there to be a Sonic movie. As I grew up, my love for Sonic grew a little smaller as I was introduced to more gaming characters and franchises. I mean, don't get me wrong, that hedgehog will always have a special place in my heart. But as the years passed, it did start to fade a little. So when I sat in the theater watching the Sonic movie, the same childlike wonder that occurred to me whilst watching the Unleashed opening cutscene struck me. And I had a pretty big smile on my face throughout most of the film.
I always race to win, keep running to the end, I gotta move and stay one step ahead, stay back and watch me go the only way I know, cause nothing's gonna slow me down. I always race to win, keep running to the end, I gotta move and stay one step ahead, stay back and watch me go the only way I know, because you know I always race, always race, always race to win.
Oh my god, they actually didn't screw this up. I'm not going to get into full depth over the history of this film and its original terrible design, since almost every other reviewer has done this already. But all I will say is, how the hell did this turn out to be good? This film pulled one of the biggest 180s I think I've ever seen for a film. It went from, who the hell would like this film, to, what, you didn't like this film? For this review, I'll be keeping the first half spoiler-free, and in the second half, I'll be discussing specific things that occur in the film. But I'll of course give a warning as to when I'll be getting into spoiler territory. Anyways, let's go. Fast. After seeing that initial design, I thought this movie would be a train wreck. Hell, even after they said they'd fixed it, I thought, there's no way this can be saved. If they thought this would be a good idea, how would the story play out? Or how would they depict Sonic as a character? I feel I can safely say that they did a decent job at depicting this character. But before we get to the positives of this film, let's talk about my issues, which I unfortunately do have a few to discuss. First, the movie never really surprised me. It was really cliche, with it hitting all the tropes you'd see in a movie like this. It didn't help that the trailers gave away many of the film's best scenes, which isn't really the movie's fault, but I feel it ruined some of the scenes since, well, I had already seen them in the trailer. I get that they really wanted to sell people on this film after the disaster that was the first trailer, but damn, they really did give a lot of this movie away. Second, I felt the pacing was a little too fast. I get that it's a Sonic movie, but its fast pace made a lot of the emotional scenes feel rushed and undeserved. For example, although I thought the dynamic between Tom and Sonic was surprisingly sweet, I didn't think their friendship was fully deserved, and I could have done with a few more scenes with them getting into antics together. The second act turns this into a road trip film, but it doesn't really feel like one, since they get to their destination rather fast. Another issue I had with this film is the humor. There were some jokes here and there that got a chuckle out of me, but most of them felt really brain dead. I get that this film is meant for kids, but if you look at the Toy Story films, those movies had really witty banter that both kids and adults can enjoy. So it's a shame that the Sonic movie doesn't really do the same. I would have really liked to have seen Sonic make some smart-ass remarks, like him and Robotnik going back and forth, since we don't really get that much interaction between the two. I know that the games don't really have that great of humor either.
Baldy nose hair! That's the best thing I've heard all day!
But I still think that they could have done better in that department. Speaking of Robotnik, I wasn't the biggest fan of Jim Carrey in this film. Whoa, wait. I thought his depiction of Robotnik was actually pretty good, and fit the character well, but I guess Carrey's humor isn't exactly for me, because it mostly narrows down to him being really loud and saying something random or stupid. Of course, that's not to say that he didn't get a chuckle or two out of me, but those are my only real issues with the film. My only other issues are like nitpicks on the story, but I'll get to those in the spoiler talk. Actually, I do have one more issue. Let me just put this here. Sonic does the floss twice in this film. Twice! Sorry about that. Now into the positives of this film. Holy hell, the action scenes were really good. They were all extremely entertaining and showcased Sonic's speed really well, with the highway chase definitely being my favorite due to its over-the-top nature, with some really funny banter occurring during the whole sequence. But all the action scenes were a lot of fun, really stylized. These moments were definitely the highlights of the film. The film also had a lot of heart to it, and I actually didn't hate Sonic's dynamic with Tom. As I said before, I would have liked to have seen more moments for them to grow their bond together, but overall I enjoyed their friendship, which was a nice surprise since all the other human and cartoon character dynamics never really worked for me. I actually really liked Sonic in this movie. Although most of the time his lines were pretty stupid, and felt like they were meant for really young kids, I still thought this version of the Blue Blur was quite enjoyable, with him being very reminiscent of the Sonic from The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic in this film is annoying, but not the bad kind of annoying, and more like the endearing kind of annoying, mainly because of his kind of sad backstory that I didn't really expect they'd give him for this film. Along with Ben Schwartz doing a really great job as Sonic, giving him this kind of childlike energy, which makes sense since this version of Sonic is still in his younger phase. His performance was definitely another highlight of the film, and is definitely now my top 3 favorite Sonic voices, maybe even my all-time favorite, although I really like Jason Griffin's depiction of Sonic a lot. Alright, now I'm going to get into spoiler stuff, so skip to this time frame if you don't want to get spoiled. Let me get some story nitpicks out of the way real quick. So the movie starts out in the midst of the action, Sonic's all like, "Hey, I'm Sonic, want to know how I got into this wacky situation? Well, let's start from the very beginning." I don't know why, but I hate when films do this, since it always feels like a lazy way to grab the audience's attention fast. We get introduced to this Longclaw character, who then dies 5 seconds after their introduction, and I guess we're supposed to care because they're playing sad music or something. So yeah, that was kind of dumb, and I feel they should have either gave a few scenes of her and Sonic interacting, or not have her in the film at all. She's supposedly killed by the Echidna Clan, which, wow, I did not expect to see them reference the Echidna Clan in this film. Holy shit, that was a nice surprise. Sonic's story of how he's been hiding on Earth for forever was actually a really cool idea, and made me sympathize for Sonic. Also, during the first act, there was a Sonic reference, and I almost lost it in the theater. That was so good. There were actually quite a few references in this film, such as Sonic doing the Smash Bros. Pose. The Sonic one is definitely my favorite. And, for the big reveal, Tails for the mid-credits scene. If you didn't know, Tails is my favorite Sonic character by far, and when that two-tailed fox hopped out of that portal, I basically lost my shit. And based on videos online, I'm not the only one. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this film. Is it a cinematic masterpiece of any sorts? No. And it's not trying to be. It knows what it is, and it does it really well in my eyes. The film's plot was very by the books, but despite all these complaints, I'm sorry, I really like this film. Maybe it's just the inner Sonic fanboy in me speaking, but I really don't care. I had a blast with this movie. Do you think you would call it a Sonic blast? Get out of here! Sorry. For Sonic's first outing on the big screen, this was quite the enjoyable, albeit flawed experience. All I wanted from this film was a fast-paced, action-packed film featuring my favorite video game character, and I got that. This film was definitely the start of something much bigger, and since this movie is doing really good at the box office, which I think is deserved since we basically cyberbullied a studio into redesigning a movie for us. If the upcoming films are as entertaining as this film was, I'm so down for what's next for the fastest thing alive.